Hello, good morning fellow Malaysians. This is Matthias Chang once again from Future Fast Forward. I really meant when I say that I hate to make any more comments on the politics of this country, on the religion of this country, and the issues that divide us. Because in all my past videos, I've asked all of you people with a check and balance on the Pakatan Harapan government. Now they have toppled the criminal, bastardized regime of Najib that raped and plundered our country. And yet, there are so many people out there beyond the Pakatan Harapan government, the Bar Council, the NGOs, who ought to know what are the issues that divide us, to come forward and speak up with the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. But sad to say, in the last few weeks, culminating in the surrender by the Pakatan Harapan that they will not rectify the International Convention on the elimination of all forms of racial discrimination, yet the controversy still continues. And thus far, whatever comments in one or two mass media fall short of the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And so for this morning, I intend to reveal the blunt and ugly truth. And I'm willing to challenge anyone in public debate. Hadi from PAS, Zahid from UMNO, Tun Mahathir from Bersatu, Anwar Ibrahim from PKR, Orchid Siang, Guan Eng, Tony Pua from DAP, or whosoever, Masabu, Husam, Khalid Samad from Amanah. Whether what I say is a bunch of lies and not the truth, and whether what I say reflect the essence of the teachings of Allah in the Quran, as we ought to practice and not deviate and distort and mislead the people of Malaysia. So let me start here first. You have seen recently this picture of Hadi, the president of PAS. The title speaks for itself. Alright? Okay, this is the first one. Second, Zahid Hamidi, president of UMNO, the criminal enterprise. Don't wait for Malays to run amok. If Hadi Awang's warning is not heeded by the government, okay, inflammatory, insidious and seditious, okay. In the case of Hadi, a total distortion of Islam. Muslim must oppose the convention. Then you have Anwar Ibrahim. He wants justice for all. He loved his race and religion. Wow. Champion for race and religion. Okay? The words speak for itself. I shall not elaborate. Okay? And then comes Tun Mahathir, impossible to ratify the treaty because it requires 2/3 majority vote in parliament to amend the constitution. Misleading, a blatant lie. Then you have a lawyer, judge, the status of the Chief Justice. We have won a battle to reject ICERD, but the war is not over. My God. To him, the issue of agreeing or disagreeing, ratifying a treaty of UN is a war for race and religion. My God. Okay. And then on the 24th of November, Star reported, right, that the government will not ratify the treaty. Okay? 24th November. And thereafter, in the below caption, about Zahid and Mount 9 to be called over racial remarks, there was some alleged police action against him and the minister in the PM's department. Okay? And then, in Langkawi over weekend, it was reported that Tun Mahathir says that government did not bow to UMNO past pressure, okay, in not ratifying the treaty. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now, you may ask yourself, right, who actually started this nonsense? This issue about human rights, etc., is nothing new. We easily forget events have passed that give rise to what happened in the last few weeks. You will recall sometime in March 2018, before the election, Najib tried to be popular. So he launched the National Human Rights Action Plan, NHRAP, National Human Rights Action Plan, and set out what will be the essential ingredients for the new path to human rights in Malaysia, encapsulated in this document called National Human Rights Action Plan. And I'll show you, all of you who's watching this video, be it lawyers, non-lawyers, activists, especially human rights activists, have you read the Cairo Declaration on Human Rights in Islam? CDHRI. Okay, have you heard of that? I did a survey quickly over the weekend. Everyone I approached it, they don't know anything about it. And yet, Zahid Hamidi passed, alright, Bersatu, PKR, DAP, Amanah ought to know, because they were in parliament. They're politicians. They would know what transpired. Okay? But you recall, there was not much debate, isn't it, on the Cairo Declaration on Human Rights in Islam. And Najib says, in the context of Malaysia, the human rights issue, especially those involving the rule of religion, ethics and culture, must be tackled parallel to Islamic teachings and the federal constitution. Then he says, very important words, right? Very important. The plan states that the countries under the OIC, Organization of Islamic Cooperation, of which Malaysia is a member, should instead adhere to the interpretation of human rights in accordance to the Sharia law, and the instruments such as the CDHRI, Cairo Declaration of Human Rights in Islam, should be the primary source. And you know that Malaysia is a signatory of the Cairo Declaration in 1990. Now, what's interesting is this, right? The essence, the foundation, the substratum of the Cairo Declaration is a Sharia law. Well, what's interesting is what Najib said as to how to interpret the Cairo Declaration, if I may quote. In the NHRAP, National Human Rights Action Plan, Putrajaya and OIC members may adhere to their own interpretation of human rights based on CDH Article 25 that states the Islamic Sharia is the only source of reference for the explanation or clarification of any of the articles of this declaration. Meaning, Article 5 says, Sharia law shall be the foundation of the Cairo Declaration. Any confusion, misunderstanding, or clarification, each country independently should interpret that document accordingly. Each country. Can you imagine now? 50 over countries, members of OIC, can have each their own separate interpretation, as opposed to a universal interpretation. Because as you know, within Islam and within members of OIC, you have the Shiites and the Sunnis. And within the Sunnis, there are many other sects. Okay? So, even if we were to follow the Cairo Declaration, there's no uniformity. With that said, okay? Now, what's interesting is this, okay? Now, if we have signed this document in 1990, this is my point going to now. Why Tun Mahathir, in the recent controversy, all right, did not explain since 1990, while we did not, Malaysia did not sign the UN Declaration of Human Rights, but signed and ratified the Cairo Declaration of Human Rights. Why did he not, in his UN speech, mention, all right, the background, right, to the controversy? Okay. Now, additionally, before I go on to his speech, I can assure you, very few of the so-called experts, the protagonists in this debate, even read the convention. This is the convention. There are altogether 25 articles. Okay? I will go to that later. All right? Now, all the controversy was, right, wow, if we sign the treaty, the Malays will be destroyed, the race, the culture, the monarchy, NEP, Bumiputra, blah, 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 blah. All right? So on one hand, you have the Cairo Declaration of Human Rights. On the other hand, we have our Constitution, with entrenched provision. I repeat, our Constitution has entrenched provision. Those provisions govern special position of the Malays, the monarchy, and religion. Those are entrenched, right? Protected, safeguarded. Yet it goes on, blah, blah, blah. And whip up hysteria, racial divide, and misunderstanding by all those people which I've shown to you. The gallery of political leaders across the entire divide, spewing, spreading misunderstanding, misperception, and more importantly, lies, and to cover up the truth. The first lie is that it's an attack on the Constitution by Hadi and Zahid and other activists who take the stand. It's an attack on the Constitution. But Tun Mahathir gave a gloss, a misinterpretation, in fact, a misrepresentation, that to rectify the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination, we must first amend the Constitution, thereby pouring fuel to the fire, meaning indirectly suggesting, without any basis, Article 153 and the rest that are entrenched provision on Malay positions and native positions to be protected in monarchy Islam would have to be amended. He said the word. We need 2/3 to amend the Constitution in order to rectify the Convention. It's a bloody lie. Why? Let me read to you, okay, a specific clause, an article, all right, Part 1, Article 1.4, Part 1 of the Convention, Article 1.4, which actually duplicates the entrenched provision in the Constitution about affirmative action, our country's Bumiputera policy, NEP. Alright? Now I read to you. Why no one, Tun, Anwar, Pas, right, Zahid Hamidi, or any other leaders across the divide even draw to this attention to our people to diffuse the fear of the ignorant horde and mobs running wild. And for Zahid, it says, I will incite them to they will run amok. Let me read to you. Part 1, Article 1.4. Special measures taken for the sole purpose of securing adequate advancement of certain racial or ethnic group or individuals requiring such protection as may be necessary in order to ensure such groups or individuals equal enjoyment or exercise of human rights and fundamental freedoms shall not be deemed racial discrimination, provided, however, that such measures do not, as a consequence, lead to the maintenance of separate rights for different racial groups, and they should not be contained after the objective for which they were taken to have been achieved. Meaning, the other nations and all those other countries who have signed this convention recognize that in many countries there are lots of development, many who are poor, oppressed. Therefore, affirmative action must be provided for them to be uplifted to share in the economic cake. But they recognize that this cannot go on forever. If the objective has been reached, the poor have been uplifted, the oppressed section of a country, all right, has been eliminated, and they all have equal opportunity. Equal opportunity, yeah? The word is opportunity, all right, to be productive. Then previous provisions with action need not be followed anymore. Even in our country, we agreed that. We said the NEP would have a certain period, right, to achieve its objective, failing which it will be extended. Okay? So how is this treaty will be inconsistent or an attack to undermine, okay, the rights of the Malay or the Muslims? All right? And in the preamble, it says very clearly, all right, the preamble is to ensure human rights and dignity for all peoples. This preamble in the United Nations, right, International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination, Racial Discrimination, has its equivalent. This is 1948, right? Okay, sorry, 1966. The UN Charter is 1948. In the Cairo Declaration, okay, it echoes similar sentiments of universal equality, respect for human rights. Okay? And the Cairo Declaration starts with these words: all human beings from one family, whose members are united by the subordination to Allah and descend from Adam. And it forbids discrimination on the basis of race, color, language, belief, sex, religion, political affiliation, social status, or other conditions. It goes on to proclaim the sanctity of life and declares the presence of the human life to be a duty prescribed by the Sharia. The CDHRI also guarantees non-belligerents, such as old men, women and children, the wounded and sick, and prisoners of war, the right to food, shelter, access to safety, and medical treatment in times of war. It affords women equal human dignity, own rights to enjoy, duties to perform, own civil entity, financial independence, and the right to retain her name and lineage, etc., etc. So, insofar as the preamble is concerned, the Cairo Declaration of Human Rights in Islam reflects, right, the general preamble of this convention, the National Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. All right. So there's some basis of discussion, isn't it? But why did it pass? UMNO or even Tun Mahathir Bersatu and PKR, Malay, essentially Malay parties, right, kept this out. See, all this while, pass. Who did? Never talk about human rights. In all my past videos, have I said that there's a hypocrisy among deviant Muslims. Right now in Middle East, Muslims are killing Muslims, financed by Zionist, British intelligence, CIA, Mossad. And here in the general preamble, all right, guarantees non-belligerents, old men, women, and children, the wounded and the sick, the right to food, shelter, and access to safety and medical treatment in times of war. Yet we saw videos, Muslim barbarically burned alive men, women, and children, and drowned alive. And yet, the Muslim nations signed this declaration, the Cairo Declaration, all right? However, of all the Muslim countries, I stand to be corrected, okay? 57 Muslim countries signed the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. Out of 57, 55, only 2 Muslim countries refused to sign. Malaysia, okay, and Brunei. Funny, huh? So, 55 Muslim countries have signed this treaty and also signed the Cairo Declaration. Both. So what's there to stop Malaysia following Saudi Arabia being the big brother of the Muslim countries to sign both? But you see how the distortion, the misinterpretation, the misrepresenting and total lies, just to show they are the champion race, religion, and power. You see? Scumbags. They don't care for us, the people, who have no differences with Malays, Indians, Chinese, Christians, Buddhists, Hindus. No difference. We don't have differences. But these bloody scumbags whip up the differences so they may stay in power. This is hypocrisy. This is hypocrisy. Now let me tell you why. Okay? Really, why Hadi of PAS and some scumbags of UMNO who proclaim they are Muslims dare not publicize the Cairo Declaration. Let me tell you why. And they are afraid Article 19, what it says, let me read to you. Article 19 of the Cairo Declaration states, there are no other crimes or punishment than those mentioned in the Sharia. Remember, Pas always talk about, right? Who don't know? Cutting on your hands, okay? Sharia allows corporal punishment, whipping and amputation. Okay? We have seen photographs, right? In Kelantan, whipping and amputation. But they kept out this part, the Cairo Declaration. A capital punishment by stoning and decapitation. Okay. So by that declaration, Cairo Declaration, it allows stoning and decapitation. That is why Najib, alright, in March of this year, in the National Action Plan for Human Rights, okay, he said, insofar as to interpret and to implement the Cairo Declaration, each country should have its own interpretation. That means Malaysia dare not mention Article 19. Even though it expressly provides stoning and decapitation. Isn't this hypocrisy? Isn't this hypocrisy? Now, come back to hypocrisy. I'm not sure who wrote the speech for Tun Mahathir in the UN, but I'm sure not every part or every paragraph of the speech was written by him. Otherwise, he would not put a caveat. Knowing him, having worked with him, if he disagrees with something personally, but because there is a consensus to put a certain clause in a speech, certain phrase or sentence, he would put a caveat. And so very cleverly, he put a caveat. The new Malaysia, para 9 of his speech, will firmly espouse the principles promoted by the UN in our international agreements. This includes the principles of truth, human rights, the rule of law, justice, fairness, responsibility, and accountability, as well as sustainability. Broad sweep. He looks so great in UN. Okay? Giving a pulpit, sermon. The whole world. I am now the Prime Minister of a new Malaysia, and we subscribe to all the fundamental principles. And then he's slipping a caveat. It's within this context that the new government of Malaysia has pledged to rectify all remaining core UN instruments related to the protection of human rights. However, it will not be easy for us because Malaysia is multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multicultural, and multilingual. We will accord space and time for all to deliberate and decide freely based on democracy. So there are two elements here. What I say is difficult. Multiracial, multi-religious, right? And multicultural and multilingual. But you give space to debate. This is a caveat. If he gives space to debate, surely on coming back to Malaysia, he would direct his cabinet. Look, in March of 2018, the crooked criminal Najib, right, had an action plan, all right, to implement human rights. Why don't we now look into that deeper? And because Najib has declared for Malaysia, the foundation stone, the substratum of our new plan will be the Cairo Declaration on Human Rights. But that declaration itself infringes the rights of many other people. Okay, not just the Muslims, because I tell you, not all Muslims, majority, will agree to stoning and decapitation. They're even screaming about hudud. So I'm sure in any debate, discussion, constructive or otherwise, people will have disagreement or agreements in a very civilized way. So my question is, right, Prime Minister Mahathir in 1990, when he was Prime Minister, signed the Cairo Declaration. He knows the pitfalls. He knows the traps, the landmines, and yet Najib went ahead to say the Cairo Declaration shall be the foundation. So in UN, right, Tun Budlay closed. He kept the door open, the back door open to run away for implementation. Because he didn't have the intellectual honesty like his predecessor, Najib, right, to address the issue head on, right, truthfully, sincerely, and with intellectual honesty to share, to discuss, then come to a consensus. What's wrong with that? Recognizing that we are multiracial, multireligious, multicultural, multilingual. Surely we have enough experience to build consensus, but instead he added fuel to the fire by saying we have to amend the constitution. Okay. Now, and then of course, everyone went after the minister in the Prime Minister's Department with Rambuti, as if he's the one who built the cat. But people forget, you see, that on 21st of August this year, okay, Suhakam, a government agency body, right, the chairman is Tan Sri Razali Ismail, and Commissioner Datuk Loh Im Ping and Gerard Joseph, so multiracial, went to see him and impressed on the minister, please, now that we're in Malaysia, not unlike Najib the criminal, okay, let's ensure, and I quote, Suhakam also feels that the government of the day needs to ratify these treaties for better human rights protection in Malaysia. And in July earlier, this meeting was in August, right? Foreign Minister Datuk Saifuddin Abdullah had pledged to push for the ratification of 6 international human rights conventions. 6! There's only one of them. 6! Okay? So, having had this discussion with the minister, with the Murti, Suhakam, and the foreign minister, which led to the speech in UN, September, right? Because the speech in UN by Tun Mahathir was in September. Okay. 29th of September. Can you see now? July, foreign minister urged signing, right, of the 6 remaining human rights convention. August, Suhakam saw the minister and pushed the agenda forward. Then Mahathir went to UN. Wow! Champion! All the press was saying, wow, Mahathir now has changed. Under the umbrella so-called reformasi. Foreign Minister, no? PKR said, Pakatan Harapan. And yet, he then said, when the pressure was too strong, he has nowhere to hide. I want justice. I love my race and my country and my religion. What have you? Hypocrites. Hypocrites. Look at this. This is an exhortation by the Prophet. Peace and blessing be upon him. About who is a hypocrite. If you're a hypocrite, you're not Muslim. So I will submit to all of you that as far as this issue is concerned, all the names of those people which I showed to you, right, the picture, they are all hypocrites. They were entrusted to do what was right. Right? Appeal was made to them to rectify the convention. But they betrayed that trust. When they speak, they lie, misinterpret, misrepresent. When they make a promise, they fail. They promise to rectify, isn't it? And then create disputes, chaos, and misunderstanding. Coming back to Anwar and Hadi and Zahid, you see, they talk about justice, especially Anwar. Justice. But then he put justice aside and said, even though I want justice, I love my race and my religion. May I remind Anwar to read again from the Quran, Surah 5, Al-Maidah, Ayat 8. O ye who believe, stand up firmly for God as witness to fair dealing, and let not hatred of others make you swerve to wrong and depart from justice. Be just. That is next to piety and fear God. For God is well acquainted with all that ye do. And verse 9, same surah, those who believe and do good deeds of righteousness have God promised forgiveness and great reward. This is the English translation from Muhammad Yusuf Ali, the most authoritative English translation of the Quran. In my past videos, I've always cited him. Double check with the Arabic version. Does the utterance by Anwar conform to this surah? I beg to say it does not conform. I want to ask a question. Are these people, these leaders, doing righteous things or sowing discord, chaos, civil unrest, run amok? This is what Zahid wants, isn't it? Listen to the past or they run amok. Instead of cooling tempers down and say to the people, don't get excited. There is an explanation. We'll find a solution. He threatens. If you don't follow, people run amok. Is he instigating? Okay. In Surah 4, Al-Nisa, verse 57, again, the Quran says, but those who believe and do deeds of righteousness, we shall soon admit to gardens with rivers flowing beneath their eternal home. Then shall they companions pure and holy. We shall admit them to shades cool and deepening. And verse 58 of the same surah, God doth command you to render back your trust to those to whom they are due. So, we entrust you to be our government, to rule us, to guide us. Repose back to us and do what's right. Do not betray our trust. Surah Al-Nisa. And then, it is stated in the Quran and by the teachers of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, that truthfulness and trustworthiness are virtues of most importance in Islam. Okay. In the hadith, as written by Abdullah bin Masud, cited in Bukhari and Muslim, it says here, observe truthfulness as a duty and always speak the truth. For truthfulness puts you on the path of virtue, and virtue leads you to heaven. And when a person tells the truth as a rule, and makes truthfulness as a way of life, he attains the place of sincerity and faithfulness. And with God, his name is written among the sincere. And stay strictly away from falsehood. For falsehood puts you on the path of immorality and leads you to hell. And when a man takes to lying, the sequel is that his name is written with God among the faithless and the insincere. Here you are. read again and get tattooed in your mind the exaltation of the Prophet. Peace and blessing be upon him. So, that will sum up the injunction of Allah Himself in the Quran. And I hope all the leaders, if you have heard of this video, you better change. Because I will take you on and I will expose you and fight you every inch of the way and expose your lies, your misinterpretation and misrepresentation. Now, I will not sum up right by telling you what are the further lies. Okay, you'll be shocking, you'll be shocked, the lies. Because they say if Malaysia ratify this convention, it's an attack on the constitution, on the Malay race, on Islam, on monarchy, everything hapus. Now, I have no time to give you a lecture on the law of treaties. Now, funny enough, right? The Attorney General, Tommy Thomas, is well versed in international law as well as constitutional law. Tun also has a team of lawyers, his private lawyers. Likewise, I suppose Zahid, Hamidi, and PAS. They have lawyers in their parties. All right, they can even appoint lawyers to advise them. Because if they had lawyers who pride themselves as experts in international law, I want to know for a fact, Tun Mahathir, Anwar Ibrahim, Zahid, and PAS, for Tun and Anwar and British government, did you get any advice or did you seek advice from the Attorney General Tommy Thomas, expert in international law, as well as the law minister and any other lawyers whom you have access to? For PAS and Zahid, I'm sure there are many Muslim lawyers. In fact, I had a conversation with one Muslim lawyer. You know, he was so, for what a better word, right, confused. When he couldn't agree what I say, he kept saying, F you, F you, F you, shut up! I don't listen to you! You know? You're wrong! Listen to me! So I said, why, what do you have fear? What do you have to fear? We are a lawyer, I'm a lawyer. Let's talk law. He says, F you lah, and slammed the phone down. Lawyers. And of course we have the CJ, the former CJ. My God, he says, it's a war. For some reason, he associates, right? Non-Muslims are declared war on Muslims and Malays and destroy them. But not once has he made a reference to the Cairo Declaration of Human Rights, which we signed, which further entrenched to protect Islam. No mention. Why? So bear that in mind, right? Now, the punchline as to who is lying and who dared tell the truth. Okay? Now, I just give you a summary, right? What are treaties, okay? The International Convention on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination is a treaty, UN treaty. A treaty is an agreement under international law entered into by actors in international law, namely sovereign states, countries, that is, an international organization. A treaty may also be known as an international agreement, protocol, covenant, convention, pact, or exchange of letters, among other terms. Then below there is a Latin phrase, pacta sunt servanda. This Latin phrase, which may be roughly translated as treaties shall be complied with, describes a significant general principle of international law, one that underlines the entire system of treaty-based relations between sovereign states. However, this legal principle, clausula rebus sic stantibus, is part of a customary international law, also allows for treaty obligations to be unfulfilled due to compelling circumstances. That means the general principle is subject to certain exceptions under the legal principle clausula rebus sic stantibus. Okay? Where objects may not be fulfilled. However, in all treaties, okay, there is what we call reservation to treaties. When you sign a treaty, you can make a reservation, okay? Okay. Now, what is a reservation? Here you are, summary. A reservation in international law is a caveat to a state's acceptance of a treaty. A reservation is defined by the 1969 Vienna Convention on Law of Treaties, Article 2, 1D. Hey, Pas, Hadi, Zahid, wake up lah. Read the law, damn you. A reservation to a treaty is a unilateral statement, however phrased or named, made by a state when signing, ratifying, accepting, approving, or acceding to a treaty, whereby it purports to exclude or to modify the legal effect of a certain provisions of the treaty in their application to that state. In effect, a reservation allows the state to be a party to the treaty while excluding the legal effect of that specific provision in a treaty to which it objects. So, if, for example, a treaty has 25 articles, of which 3 the object, on signing, on ratification, it says, those 3 articles should not apply to us, to my country, for example, Malaysia. And that's it. And those 3 articles, all right, will not bind Malaysia or any other countries, okay? However, the issue of 2/3, which has been misapplied to the Constitution by Tun Mahathir, has an application in the treaty. If having made reservations to a treaty by any country, if 2/3 of all the countries that have ratified the convention objects to the reservation, then the reservation will have no effect, and the country can then either withdraw from the treaty or be bound by the treaty, even including the 3 reservation. Thus far, many countries, okay, have made reservations and have not been overruled by 2/3. Okay, we don't have to amend the Constitution because we don't have 2/3 majority parliament. You can make reservations, and only if 2/3 of countries who are members of the treaty object to your reservation, then that reservation has no effect. It's harder to get 2/3 from foreign countries agreeing to object, right, to your reservation than having 2/3 in Parliament to amend the Constitution. What utterly rubbish! Okay. However, in contrast, to accede without reservation means agree to all the terms of the treaty without limitations, without reservations. Okay? And I challenge Pas, Zahid Hamidi, Tun Mahathir, Anwar Ibrahim, Attorney General Tommy Thomas, and any other lawyers to say I'm wrong in my summary of the law on objections. Okay? Okay? In fact, the Law Commission gave a statement when the matter came up before, all right, the commission as to whether reservations ought to be allowed and its efficacy. Okay? And whether the Vienna Convention of the Law of Treaties would have been amended. The International Law Commission states this. The 1997 report, the ICERD rejected this idea. Okay? The countries can make reservations. According to the ILC, the reasons why there were problems with reservations against human rights were the same reasons why there were problems with reservations against other treaties. Therefore, the ILC decided that no special regime for human rights treaties would be required. That means a human rights convention treaty, like other treaties, reservations can be made. There's no special provision that no reservation will be allowed. Okay? Because the ILC further states, only the reserving state can decide what action it will follow. The state can decide to withdraw or change reservation or decide not to become a party to the treaty in question. Because it is all recognized sovereign right, sovereign consent. You can't impose a consent on a sovereign state. So when a sovereign gives reservation, make reservation, that reservation does not apply to the country. Law Commission. Okay. Now, you'll be surprised. What are the reservations made by various countries? You'll be very surprised. Read here. To this convention, okay? A number of parties have made reservations and interpretive declarations to the application of the convention. The convention text forbids reservation incompatible with the object and purpose of this convention, or that would inhibit operation of any body established by it. A reservation is considered incompatible or inhibitive if 2/3 of parties object to it, which I explained just now to you, right? They don't like reservations. When we make reservation, it can be overruled by 2/3 of members. Article 22 has been reserved by Afghanistan, Bahrain, China, Cuba, Egypt, Equatorial Guinea, India, Indonesia, Iraq, Israel, Kuwait, Lebanon, Libya, Madagascar, Morocco, Mozambique, Nepal, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Thailand, Turkey, Vietnam, and Yemen. Why? Do not consider themselves bound by Article 22. Some interpret this article as allowing dispute to be referred to the International Court of Justice only with the consent of all involved parties. Next one, very important, apply to us. Obligations beyond existing constitution. That means if the convention, right, contradicts, okay, with our constitution, Antigua, Barbados, I think, Bahamas, Barbados, Guyana, Jamaica, Nepal, Papua New Guinea, Thailand, and the United States. Aha, you hear that? USA. Interpret the convention as not applying or as not implying any obligations beyond the limits of the existing constitution. Meaning, if the constitution of the country does not allow certain things or allow certain things, the convention, those parts of the convention cannot override the constitution. Even USA do that. You dumb scumbag pass, Zahid Hamidi, don't lie. CJ, don't you dare lie, former CJ, to say that the constitution will be attacked. You scumbag, you're the Chief Justice, and you dare mislead the country. Then, next one, hate speech. Austria, Belgium, France, Ireland, Italy, Japan, Malta, Monaco, Switzerland, and Tonga all interpret Article 4 as not permitting or requiring measures that threaten freedom of speech, opinion, association, or an assembly. Antigua and Barbados and Bahamas, Fiji, Nepal, Papua New Guinea, Thailand, and United States, United Kingdom, interpret the convention as creating an obligation to enact measures against hate speech and hate crimes only when the need arises. The United States of America does not accept any obligation under this convention, in particular under Article 4 and 7, to restrict those extensive protections of individual freedom of speech, expression, and association contained in the Constitution of America and laws of the United States through the adoption of legislation or any other measures to the extent that they are protected by the Constitution and laws of the United States. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, okay, even on immigration and on indigenous people, okay, it goes on. Read here. Immigration. Monaco, Switzerland reserve the right to apply their own legal principles on the entry of foreigners into their labour markets. The United Kingdom does not regard the Commonwealth Immigration Act 1962 and the Commonwealth Immigrants Act 1968 as constituting any form of racial discrimination. Indigenous people, orang asli for Bahasa Bumiputera, Tonga reserves the right not to apply the convention to any restriction on the alienation of land held by the indigenous Tongans, like for example Malay Reserve. Fiji has significant reservations around Article 5 and reserves the right not to implement those provisions. If they're incompatible with existing law on voting rights, the alienation of land by indigenous Fijians. The equivalent is Malay Reserve. Can't be sold to non-Malays, like in Fiji, to protect. So the convention has no application. Reservation. If you take the trouble to go to the actual copy of the treaty signed, you will see people signing, 40 minutes, whatever. And after signing below, the reservation they made. So how can anyone, more so lawyers, government leaders with all the resources, party leaders with all the resources, our former government ministers like Zahid say otherwise? Thank God PAS is not in Pakatan Harapan government. Otherwise, we will utter rubbish and confuse everyone. That's it. I'm appalled, disgusted, pissed off. There's so many lawyers are within the PH government and party, with the benefit of the Attorney General, who pride himself an expert in international law as well as constitutional law, has not made a statement in public to assist the Prime Minister. Now, I have other things to say, but I would not want to venture at this moment. But I think this controversy has a hidden agenda. Okay? It will soon become apparent to all of you. Remember, in my past videos, I've said very clearly, between September and December, events will accumulate, will go on track to a crisis point. Check all my past videos and my past WhatsApp messages to all of you. Have I not said that? Crisis coming in December, domestically as well as globally. This is only one facet of the shit that we put up with. I therefore conclude to all of you, my fellow Malaysians, I hope you agree with me. You've been lied to, cheated, misled into believing the load of crap from PAS Hadi, from UMNO Zahid Hamidi. And the saddest thing of all, it pains me to say this, even our Prime Minister, for the world in me, how could he say he has to amend the Constitution when there are cases, all right, which I said to you, countries making reservations if the convention articles, right, limits or contradicts or exclude provisions of the Constitution, the supreme law of the land, and other reservations. And Anwar says, all right, he wants justice, but he loves his race and religion more. Irrelevant, non-issue. Race and religion and the convention. Why do you say so in 1990 when you were in government, Anwar? When you signed the Karul Declaration. You know about it, right? The government signed it in 1990. You pretend not to know, is it? Did you say giving some of these obnoxious articles in the Karul Declaration? Do you say you disagree? Or because it was so, Saudi Arabia was leading the bandwagon, you dare not utter any word of protest. You meekly surrendered as you did so recently. Alright? For alternate motive, I don't know. Explain to the people now. If you can't, for heaven's sake, and a so-called PM in waiting, whatever that means, and you want to aspire to be a Prime Minister in the future, I think you should apologize on behalf of your party. And Tun Mahathir, may I ask you, your foreign minister, and your prime ministers, and your minister in the prime minister's department in charge of human rights, right? Have the decency, the intellectual honesty to explain carefully, yeah? And stop posturing that you're a champion. And for you pass, you scumbag element, you deviate. You're a deviant. You contradict the exhortations and the plain teachings of Quran and the Prophet. And Zahid, of course, you are a scumbag. Alright? Part of that, posse of criminals. So one MDB. Alright? Please, why don't you shut up? Talk less. Repent and ask for forgiveness for your sins and your criminality. With that, I conclude my speech today. And once again, I ask you to have faith, to have strength, to tell the truth. You must have resilience. Surrender to the will of Allah unconditionally, no reservations to Allah. Have absolute faith that He will protect, defend, and guide us under all circumstances. In the face of all these scumbags who try to blind us, mislead us, that we'll be always on the right path to justice and truth. With that, I thank you all for your attention, and God bless you all.